Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, so great to be here. Just clicking through, making sure everything looks good. Something looks weird today. All right. I feel like StreamYard changed their platform, so it's kind of weird. So please let me know if you can see and hear me okay. And as you're coming into this live session, always, I love those warm and fuzzies in the comments. Just you're here. Always tell me also where you're visiting from. That's always a nice warm and fuzzy as well. And just welcome back everybody as we're in the U.S. at least coming back from a long weekend. I did work all weekend, but I took a little time for myself as well. And I hope if you are in the U.S. that you took time for yourself as well. So I'm just looking here. Weird. I don't know if anybody can please. I can see people are on here. Can you just comment? Because I'm getting a really weird something coming in here, and I can't see any comments right now. This is part of the live process. So if you are coming in here, let's see if we can make sure I'm actually seeing the comments so I can have a live session. Okay. Okay, interesting. Okay. So again, I know we have viewers in here. Please, where you're visiting from, just say hello. So I know that this like weird hiccup isn't happening because it's always weird to go live and see a hiccup. So today's session, let's focus in on what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So as always in these live sessions, it's a general Q&A. So we're going to talk a little bit about like what happens after Labor Day in the US and just globally, as most companies, the calendar year is the fiscal year. And so hiring really sees typically a surge from about August 15th to November 15th. But also what we want to anticipate and be talking about a little bit today is like what that really September and October hiring surge looks like and why there's a bit of a surge, even in a little bit of a down economy. We just want to be making sure that we are following these trends and that we're doing everything we can in our power to make sure that we are absolutely having a fantastic run because this is really crunch time and that we're doubling and tripling down and doing everything we can. So as always, again, this is a general Q&A. And so we'll be covering everything. Before we do that, let's take a step backwards before we move forwards. And as you're coming into this stream, I just am having like a little bit of this weird thing going on with StreamYard today. I've mentioned it a couple times. So if you're commenting, please comment, hey, Jeff, you can hear me okay, and where you're visiting from. Because right now, I don't see any comments, and that might create a very, very short session for us. So if you can, please let me know. And obviously, if you are commenting and I can't see it, we're going to have a little bit of a challenging day today. So I'm just going to play around here for a minute because I'm not seeing any comments come in. Oh, Liz, thank you. Thank you. Okay. The comments are working. Thank you so much. It can be challenging to go live when you're you can see numbers coming in, but you don't know if you're talking to yourself. So thanks for that. Let's go back to yesterday's video for just a moment, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper. So yesterday's video, here's what I've unlocked. And I've really enjoyed this part of the process. And this is something that I want to continue to teach people as much as possible. So yesterday's YouTube video focuses in on the patterns that show up in our actions of our behavioral answers. And so what we want to think about in the actions of our behavioral answers is what is the pattern when we answer a question? Well, there's really three sections of the actions that we want to be talking through. We want to be talking through those initial stages. We're almost always looking at information, data, planning, and we're having conversations to do all that, right? We want to gather data from other stakeholders, internal, external, etc. We want to come up with a plan so we can move on to that next set of actions, which is testing our idea, our process, our strategy, our software, and then executing on positive tests. And then ultimately, almost all of our examples are going to round out with some product launch or process launch, or there's going to be some sort of presentation to leadership, internal teams, some form of documentation. I think why behavioral answers can be so scary is because we don't really know what to focus on in our actions. Well, focus in on that upfront, what you did initially, then the missing piece of the puzzle, really getting into testing and execution, and then rounding out launching, presenting, documenting. If you follow these 3 steps, and by the way, it's not just for some big initiative. When we have a conflict with somebody, for example, the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to think back to other conversations we've had with them, maybe talk with other stakeholders to figure out if they have a conflict with Bob, and then come up with a plan for how to talk with Bob about that conflict. Then we're going to test a few strategies with Bob to see what works best, and then we're going to execute on the best strategy with Bob, and then we're going to talk through how that had impact with how we, again, like presented ideas to Bob, et cetera, et cetera. So I know I'm getting long-winded here, but your behavioral actions, the challenge with most behavioral actions is that most people front load. So they spend a ton of time talking about what happened initially, but they don't talk about the testing and execution and the launching, presenting, and documenting. So if you haven't had a chance to check out yesterday's video, it's a super short video. Okay, let's dive in. I'm just going to highlight my services for a second, then I'll answer questions. And again, remember, this is a general Q&A, and then in our downtime, we'll talk about from summer slowdown to a September hiring surge. And so I highlight this every week. app.practiceinterviews.com. Candidly, I don't know that I know how to sell the product. It's just me having an honest moment. It's a free trial, 7 days. You get everything for free for 7 days, and then it stays free. We just remove and lock up some of the things to see if you want to purchase it. You have nothing to lose. If you are here, you are in job search mode. You're watching this live session now. You're watching this live session later on, because obviously we record it and repost it, and we get most of the views at that time. You have nothing to lose by doing a 7-day free trial. All you'll do is you'll learn how to answer interview questions better, because you'll learn how to answer components in chunking. Our brain does better when we chunk things down into smaller pieces, and that's what my app does. You can go to a competitor, and what they'll do is they'll give you GPT feedback. So you don't need their platform. Just go to GPT to get feedback, but this will chunk down for you. Still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategies. Got packages as well. And then, of course, we still have that killer interview mastery course. All right, we're coming off of a Labor Day weekend in the US, so it could be a super sleepy live session today. Remember, as you're coming in, any and all questions are welcome. Happy to answer anything. And then we'll talk a little bit about hiring trends. Oh, hey, let's miss the first one. Okay, sunny Sarasota, that's good. Actually got a little tiny bit of gray this morning in San Diego, but it's going to clear out. It's been hot here. I'm here but tired. Pulled an all-nighter 2 days ago to finish a project and be ready for September. I mean, Liz, it's a credit to you that you would pull an all-nighter. Even I don't pull all-nighters at this point. So yeah, it's great. Like, whatever we put into life is what we get out of it, right? And so I think it can be challenging to live in our world right now, where sometimes what we see is that for the effort people are willing to make, the results are limited. And I do want to do a LinkedIn post on this. I did a LinkedIn poll on investment in somebody's career, and there were only 70 votes, but 50% of those people indicated that they hadn't spent a single dollar on their career in the last year. So that means they never got a practice interview tool. They never had an upgraded LinkedIn account. They didn't do any of those things, yet I'm sure some of those 35 people were looking for work. And so we need to invest time and money. Time and money is what's going to make us better. And that's not just interviews and negotiation and all that stuff, right? Maybe we invest in spending a little bit more on better food for ourselves, spending money on a gym, spending money on self-care like acupuncture or massages or whatever it might be, or energy healing, whatever we need. And so the translation of investing your money to get better results, and we can invest very small amounts of money to have great success in life. That's just a tangent as we're slow today. So let's keep going. Glad to have you here, Liz, as always. Appreciate you. Hey, Daphne from Miami. Hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. I hope you had a great one as well. And thank you, as always, for being here. Really appreciate the effort you put into this video, especially one where you went into depth into actions. Okay. Do you think we should provide as much detail for non-FAANG interviews? I do. Like, I think like the biggest misconception. Okay, so like, let's go online. Let's look at what is the biggest? I think the biggest person in the interview space is well, there's a couple, but there's this one dude. I think he's in the UK, and his name is Career Vids, and he's very he's got a big personality. And but all the behavioral example answers are like, I looked at the data, I spoke with the stakeholders, we executed on the plan, and the results were. It's like, I literally have absolutely, Daphne, like no idea what you did. Without the depth of what you did supported by how you did it, I'm instantly going to forget you. And so, yes, if you feel like you have an anxious audience, like so much of this is about adapting to our interviewer, but I still need to know what you did supported by how you did it and your actions of your behavioral answers. Otherwise, it's forgotten. If you talk about planning, meeting with stakeholders, and executing, all of that is so vague, it's so dull, it's so boring, it's gone. But if I know that you planned by doing 3 half-an-hour workshops that were all virtual via Zoom with stakeholders in A, B, and C area, that if you executed by launching just a pilot in the Bay Area by doing X, Y, and Z, like it makes it much more interesting and more memorable. And here's the beauty. This is kind of like one of the things that I don't think is talked about enough is the beauty is that culturally across the world, in all cultures, from the time we were children, we listened and heard stories. And so our ability to listen to stories for longer periods of time, it's kind of ingrained in us. And so if you're telling a really good example, a really good story through what's and hows, you're going to have a much more engaged audience. So I know that's long-winded, but I hope it helps. Interviewing today for Google for a team manager. Any tips? Yeah. So I mean, look, my basic and biggest tip, for Google in particular, is if you don't go in like you're already in the position, it will be the biggest challenge. And why is that so important? Because with Google's hypothetical questions, you need to assume and kind of sit in the role. And so if you get a hypothetical question, how would you do X, or what would you do in Y scenario? Really sit like you're solving from the lens of that role. Because if we answer hypothetical questions generically, you're going to struggle. Obviously, use the CFAST method for hypothetical, the STAR method for behavioral questions, and then just knowing it's today, really fine tune just a few great examples. Really make sure you have a good idea of how you're going to clarify, provide a framework, and bring assumptions into your hypothetical answers. And then a half an hour before, relax, meditate, listen to meditation music. Even if you're not comfortable meditating, don't prep up until the last second. Why? Because the science teaches us that when we use brain capacity up to the last second, our brain will not function as well during the interview. It's a incredibly important tip or trick. Do not prep up until the last second. And by the way, I'm saying that as somebody who did that for every single interview in their entire job career, that's what I did. I prepped up until the last second, not knowing that I was using brain capacity. Our brains are really good in short stints, like 20, 25 minutes. That's why even like a 45-minute interview isn't really aligned with how our brain works. Now, we can focus in a little bit more when it's more intense and we need to, but just something to keep in mind. I think everybody who's here or anybody who's watching in the future world, when you're watching this on a the wow, my brain's foggy today. Just on the watching the re-recording of this, um, just to know that like all of my coaching is related to the brain. I don't want to coach on anything else. Like if we know how the brain works, we'll do much better in job interviews and in negotiations for sure. Just an FYI, latest project. I read the when implying for my favorite DevRel, you must show recent projects that are less than 6 months old because AI industry is moving so fast. My latest really is my best project ever. We'll share URL next time. Happen to be a SaaS as well to gate usage. Okay. And then let's go to this next one. In the next couple of days, I'll switch 100% of my time to practice interviews. Okay. My favorite role, my top 3 companies just opened up, so it's time to go. All right, cool, Liz. So, yeah, I think what Liz is bringing up is a great point, which is like relevancy is getting incredibly important. And so, like the biggest company out there in the world that focuses on relevancy is actually Amazon. They really want examples from the last couple of years, but as we're now thinking through our examples, our older examples that maybe for some people in this audience that aren't leveraging AI may not be as good as the ones where we were able to leverage AI or just current technologies and really, really current stuff to be successful. So obviously that's not only behavioral of how we've done it, but it's hypothetical of how we might incorporate some learnings into things. So this is great. And yeah, Liz, it's time to go. Again, this is the time. The next 2 months historically, I did recruiting on and off basically for about 20 years. And historically, my best numbers, I made my most money. It was always in this time frame, September, October. I actually did quite well in November and December. And November is still very, very heavy into December. And why? Because budget. Get the budget for a new role. You don't hire for it, you lose that budget, and then you can't hire that person next year. So hiring managers tend to be very, very motivated around this time of year as well. If you had 1 month to prep for interviews, what would you do? So if I had 1 month to prep, what I would do is I would if I had really 1 month to prep, and again, this is not to, I don't want to get into sales mode, but I would definitely, if you had the time to take a course and really learn all the foundations and fundamentals, because they'll build up your answers. If you don't take the course, it's a week just starting to frame and build out your answers. And then as you get into week 2, then you're going to incorporate some sort of practice, whether that's one-on-one practice with a coach, with a family member, a friend. You're going to use some technologies like an app to help you start to get your answers out. And then that's when the learnings come in, right? So you spent a week kind of prepping your answers. You spent the second week starting the practice, and now you've identified the core areas you really need to focus in on to improve. Then the next 2 weeks is going back, tweaking, and continuing to have those practice sessions. I know that that's super high level, definitely create a cheat sheet. But if you had 1 month, it's just getting after it. And then the other thing, what do we need to recognize? You cannot practice your interview skills for 8 hours a day. You won't do it. You'll break down. It will be the worst. Do it in small bursts, little chunks, more interview style. Practice for 30 minutes, practice for an hour, and then walk away and then come back. But just setting a plan and dedicating a certain amount of hours per day will be helpful. I'm hosting a crypto regulation panel at my conference in mid-September. I may see my ex-Googlers there. How should I best market myself, i.e., have my own consultancy in exploring government roles? All true. Um, you're hosting it. I might need a little bit more information, but the way that I would present myself in anything that I was hosting or doing, or any opportunity where I would be networking, um, I would focus all on them. I would focus on like what's going on in their world, anything I can do to help them, and then just kind of moving on to the next person. I wouldn't be asking for anything. Nobody likes that. Well, I know I always say that nobody likes it, but I'm sure some people like that approach. But why does that approach work? You'll be the most remembered person. Now, again, if you're hosting it, you probably should be the most remembered person anyway. But the idea and concept is we try to unlock and solve issues and challenges for others. We try to take extreme interest in others. First of all, because it just is interesting. We know about ourselves. We don't need to know any more about ourselves. We want to learn about others, which is exciting. But if you go in with a helping mindset, what's going to happen is they're going to remember you from that meeting. They're going to follow up with you. They're going to stay in touch with you. And so um, maybe you'll bring in more information, but that's kind of my default mode is when I go to any of these types of events. And I have one next week, like a big one that I'm going to that's really important. And my plan is to not talk about myself at all. I'm going to try and go in there with the goal of meeting as many people as possible, helping them as much as I possibly can, and just providing value first, because I know when I walk out of that event, I'll be the most remembered person. Bring it on. You're ready and much stronger than you were 6 months ago. Yeah, and I think like Liz, this is just it's such a great moment. First of all, awesome. And second of all, like we get stronger when we dedicate ourselves to whatever endeavor, right? And it takes massive amounts of time and consistency, sometimes pain, heartache. Like there's lots of things that happen in these journeys, and the only thing we can rely on is just for us to show up every day. So I was having a conversation with my buddy yesterday, and I was telling him, I said, like, I believe that my greatest skill is that I just show up every day. Lots of days I don't feel like I move the needle as much as I want to, or could have, or should have. But then I just wake up the next day and I show up again. I show up for my mind, for my body. There are things I do every day to show up for those two things. So, Liz, you've been showing up for yourself, and that's what's most important in my mind. Okay. I finally removed the professional summary section from my resume. Still have your summary bullets. When applying, I know you don't like it, but should the full title of the role be identified somewhere in the resume? Technical program manager, 3 data analytics, cloud networking? No, anybody who's giving you that advice, that's terrible advice. Just like the old school, like there was the old school objective, or like seeking X role. Like I just don't think it's necessary, and I don't want to tell anybody what to do with their resume in terms of, if you don't agree with my advice, just go and do it. But I don't know where you'd build that in. It's so specific, Daphne, that like if you had like a technical project manager role and you change that title to technical program manager in your resume, in parens technical project manager, I think doing something like that is fine. And then obviously with the summary bullets, if you're going to get referred, because obviously I'm not a big fan of applying, if you're going to get referred, just make sure that those summary bullets are very, very role aligned and very specific. It's a New York conference where there's a lot of tech people there. I may see some old faces there. Okay. Just go back to this. Hosting a crypto regulation panel. Oh, panel at a conference, at a conference. Okay. Okay, that's helpful. So it's in New York where there's a lot of tech people, and you may see some old people there. Okay, I'm gonna skip your question for a second. I don't want to seem like I'm actively looking for a job with my coworkers, even though I'm looking for the perfect role, i.e., I will network with others. And by the way, like we just, even if we're happy in our role, the world is telling us that no job is safe. Like, and we've been in this place for a long time now where like the world is indicating that it is an employers based market, and anybody who tells you different is just not speaking the truth. And anybody who wants to fight that and say it's still a candidates market, it's not. It doesn't mean that we can't stand out and be stellar candidates and get multiple job offers. Of course we can. But if I were employed right now, I'd be networking every single week. I'd always be keeping my ears open because I want to keep moving, keep making money, and keep doing the things I can do before the world, before AI takes all the jobs. So, yeah, I would just say, hey, it's great to see you. We should stay in touch. But yeah, I would keep the language really, really softy and not get too much into that you'd be open. But again, if somebody directly asks you, say, I'm always, I'm happy, and I'm always curious to talk to others. So, okay. So Daphne, like I think that the ATS thing is creating confusion on how ATSs work, and like, and again, this is why we don't want to be applying to jobs. If we're relying on figuring out all the nuances of how to beat the applicant tracking system, it's not going to be good for us, right? But like, I just don't. The applicant tracking system isn't looking for the exact title match, or it shouldn't be. Not for a title that specific. Again, I don't want to encourage you to do anything you don't feel comfortable doing. If you want to put objective landing this job and put that exact title in there because you saw somewhere else that that was good for the ATS. Again, I don't. My goal is not to stop you from doing that. It's just like I just don't believe that that works, and I don't think that ATSs are filtering on the exact job title. They may be filtering on like, does it say program manager or technical program manager? But that is such a unique title that the likelihood that somebody else had that title at another company is like 0%. Just my 2 cents. And you keep showing up for us, which has been very helpful. Great accountability, momentum, support from others in the same boat. Fingers. Now, it only takes one offer. Thank you, Liz. Thank you for all you do. Definitely a customer, fan, and planning to hire you for negotiation stage when I get there. Amazing. Yeah, and I think negotiation, remember, like all the negotiation services, anybody who doesn't book it, it's loss aversion. I mean, you should see some of what we've been able to negotiate for clients, but that's a sidebar, right? But it's crazy how much money, extra money you can make in negotiations. Like I don't think people truly understand. It's it's amazing. It's a small chunk of money to get tens of thousands. Sometimes, obviously, I've gotten my clients into the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of extra dollars, and it's all role dependent. But it's just, yeah, people want to negotiate on their own. There are nuances for sure. Okay. Definitely lots of pain and disappointment throughout the process. Jeff, your weekly lives continue to give me hope. Yeah, and remember, we always have to be doing and trying different things to unlock the formula that works best for us, right? And like, again, I think part of this is that I'm kind of in this journey with everybody right now. Like, you're in job search journey, and I'm in my own journey. And my own journey is, how do I sell and market my app? And like, that's been my journey for 2 years. Like, kicked this off project off 2 years ago. And so like, if I continued to do the same things over and over and over again, I wouldn't have had any momentum. And I keep switching it up and changing it up. And I've actually unlocked something recently that's had a lot of impact and success. But it took the app's been live for over 18 months. It took all that time to figure out a path that's actually starting to work. So, like, we all need to constantly work through it. What's the story I'm trying to tell? Is that, if we just go and we apply to 5 jobs a day for a year, like, probably nothing's going to happen. And if we apply to 5 jobs a day for a year, that's quite a few jobs, right? So it's continuing to try different networking strategies, try different ways to get referred, just try different and new things, because that will maybe also invigorate you. Because if we do the same thing over and over without success, it it's also going to really, really wear us down. Yeah, and again, like, I just have to state that I don't like it. Again, and this is just like my personal opinion. I do not like, I don't like putting the job title on our resume. I don't, it's not my preference. And I don't know, maybe it creates more success. And what you'll see from people who do resume writing, myself included, is that we have very specific ways that we see things, and I think it's important for us to note that not always do our ideas or concepts are they perfect. So if you want to put it on there, put it on there. But the bigger point would be, if you're putting it on there because you want to put it on there because you're applying to all these roles, and every time you apply you put it up there, it's like, well, you won't need it if you get referred in. And I know that's very, very easier said than done. Okay, I'm applying for this job. Okay. Hey Jeff, thanks for the stream. Is the Google hiring assessment now sent to all G applicants? I just passed one and wonder what are the chances of moving forward to an interview. It's sent to all applicants that they have some level of interest in, and I really want to put emphasis on the word some, because there's enough of a trigger there where it's like, okay, we're going to send this assessment to this candidate because we think they're a potential fit. I don't know what the exact messaging looks like because I've never obviously completed one, but it doesn't guarantee interviews. So all it does is it's basically like, you send it, sorry, they send it to you because they think you're a fit, you fill it out, and then the result is you may or may not get an interview. I think what a good timeline is 2 to 4 weeks. If you complete and pass the assessment and you haven't heard back in about 2 to 4 weeks, they've moved on with other candidates. We could talk a lot about the validity of them using a Likert scale sort of assessment pre-interview to like block people out. But the way that they've rolled it out, the way that they've communicated how it works, what your expectations should be, I don't believe that's great. But I don't have all the data. Jeff, you're the hiring expert. I look to your words of wisdom and vast experience for guidance. So I know you don't like applying, networking. Yeah, because I don't like applying. And I mean, like, it's statistics, right? And so I'm such a, it's weird because I think my brain has really evolved and changed over time, in the sense that I was one of those people, growing up, middle school, high school, even college. I was a history and English person. I mean, that's where I really thrived. I was an English major and an English literature major in college. I loved reading, I loved writing. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten much more into math and science. And so the math here is that the applications, if we look at the time spent crafting our resume for said job, and like the effort, and I know we have easy apply and all that stuff, but all the time and effort spent applying, statistically, it's really just like it provides a little to no value. It doesn't mean people don't get jobs through applications. Of course they do. But the the time value of networking and what that can do for your career is much greater. And then, of course, The biggest missing piece of the puzzle that we always need to talk about. If your LinkedIn profile is not 100% optimized, it's just a missing piece of the puzzle too. And I do get feedback that people don't know how to do it. I have a ton of videos on it. Like, I think we have to recognize that with AI and with YouTube and with everything, like, that just can't be the excuse anymore. Like, we just have to fully optimize our LinkedIn profiles to be found so that we can remove some of that applying work. And I know I've been on these live sessions enough to know that I've crushed everybody with that guidance before. Hey, Trevor. Hey, Jeff. With the change in DEI, do you think it's wise to bring up my dyslexia in interviews? I use all your recommended methods with questions and prep, but I feel my responses are not understood. Okay, let's go to the second one. I don't look for special treatment, but I do know my responses are not typical. Okay, so I think that we can address this, addressing it with individual interviewers. I don't know that I can guarantee a positive response from everybody. What you can do is early on in the stages, whether that's with a recruiter or hiring manager, is to ask a broader question. It's about accessibility. So when you get into interviews, you can say, hey, I'm just wondering, like, what does accessibility look like during job interviews? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, do you make interviews or change interviews or make them more accessible based on some learning areas that I have, or whatever, however you want to word that. You can use GPT to word that, but it's really a question of accessibility. If they're totally confused, they don't understand what you mean, then okay. But like, you may want to back off and not use it as much. But if they're like, oh yeah, like the way we look at neurodivergent and like how we operate for here or there or whatever they might say, and it's like, oh, okay. Then they have an accessibility plan, and then you might want to introduce the dyslexia component. Say, this can trip me up in interviews, and I just wanted to share that and make sure interviewers are aware. Because to bring it up to individual interviewers, if that's not like the default company mode, which obviously it should be, but we don't really live in that world, then it could potentially set a negative tone. And remember, people are biased. They have a lens, and we don't want to do anything to hurt ourselves in that way. So really, with the upfront conversations, it's a question about accessibility. How do you handle accessibility in interviews? If they don't understand what you're talking about, you can maybe dig a little bit deeper, but it's just, these companies should know what you're speaking about when you talk about accessibility. If they don't, it can be more challenging. So it is tricky. And obviously, anything you can do to repetition will help you get through some of this. But yeah, ultimately, I want you to do what you feel is best for you. I think that that's good coaching, and I hope that you try that approach if you think it might help you. Okay, we're pretty early to be out of questions. We got a pretty good audience right now, so I'm just going to kind of linger and pause. As additional questions come in, of course, I'll answer them. Let's just take a moment to talk about from summer slowdown to September surge. I'm struggling with my words today. Now's the time. If you are unhappy in your job, if you are unemployed and looking for a new job, even if you're happy in your job, but you're still keeping your eyes open, now is the time to double down. It's just such a great time to get hired. And again, one of the biggest things to constantly remember is it partially is a budgetary item, right? Some companies, they set very strict budgets on hiring budgets for your team, for your roles for the year, and don't spend it, meaning don't hire, and you'll lose that budget. And hiring managers don't want to do that. So they will put an extraordinary push on over the rest of the year, and especially over the next couple months. Really, November is pretty good too. And even into December, that those first couple weeks, if they're super motivated, we can go all the way up to mid-December. But after December 15th, it totally shuts off. And really, if we really look at the timeline, it's like the next 10 weeks are going to be the most critical, maybe the next 12 weeks. So it's just a good idea. It's like, this is a great reminder. You're here. Like, let's double down. Let's get after it now. Just get after it. Just do that little extra. Be shocked. We can stack, right? It's a little bit of the compound effect. Let's just stack little wins every day, just a little bit, 15 minutes here, 30 minutes here, an hour there. Let's stack these little wins. It's going to be really, really helpful. Raul, it is great to see your name. I have been good. Lots of positive things, lots of challenges in life as always, and so everything is about how we respond to something, not what happens around us. We can only control how we respond, and I tend to be pretty decent in these lives. I can't say I'm always perfect on how I respond. Google's voluntary exit plan. Well, look, there's criteria around that, right? But I may be setting myself up for success to see how I voluntarily exit and maybe set myself up with another job before I do that so I can get the payouts. I just think, my comment on the voluntary exit plan is that you're going to see this from all companies. They are going to be able to do more with less. We've peaked in terms of these like big companies. We've peaked for employee counts. Those employee counts aren't going to keep going up. They're going to keep going down because they're going to automate more and more jobs, right? And so we're going to see it. You're going to see recruiting completely disappear. You're going to see engineering, 80% of engineering jobs disappearing. Like this is going to happen. So I would say to people considering it that sooner rather than later, because it may not always be around. That may not be something they always give, but what's the setup? And then, of course, how are we set up financially? And then how are we set up financially? And how can we think about completely blowing up our lives and doing something completely different? I know I'm going on a tangent here, but can we do some sort of arbitrage where we move to another location where we can save on costs and we can do something else where we're not grinding? It's just like there's all these things, but yeah, I mean, this voluntary exit plan has actually been around now for a while if people aren't aware of it. And yeah, they're letting people just walk out the door and paying them to do it because they know in the long run it's probably going to be better for them. This is a bottom line issue. This is when we talk about an employer-based market. They're calling the shots now, right? And it doesn't mean that we can't be the ideal candidate. It doesn't mean we can't negotiate great offers. We can still do all that stuff. The job market is going to change so quickly, and I don't know that people are truly ready for it. Now, here's the other thing. We're talking in a group now, in an audience now that has a pulse on what's going on in the world of AI. Most people who are here have at least used it, understand it, have a feeling for it. And that's not the whole population. There's going to be some long legacy companies that are going to take a long time to adopt. But if they don't adopt at some point, they're just going to be, their competition's going to crush them because they're going to be able to do everything much, much cheaper. Now I'm just talking in circles. So, yeah, I mean, I don't love it, but I also like, hey, if you gave me an opt out, I might take it just because I know the future state of the world and what's coming. Do you recommend applying to G at this time? Yeah, and I mean, again, like Liz, I could provide a lot of insights into. Let's just go through this, Liz. Let's see. Headcount or leverage getting RTO. Some media reports the VIP aims to make the management layer leaner by 35%. Yeah, and again, we're seeing this voluntary exit plan across a lot of product areas. So it's not just at the management level. I believe recruiting is still actively being offered this. Last time I spoke to my friends about it. Um, so yeah, it's definitely. Here's the thing about Google. I feel like the it's still it's still worth it, and here's why. It's money. One, you're gonna make good money. It is still one of the best paying companies in the world, regardless of what you read online. And do a ton of negotiations. Still, hands down, one of the best paying companies in the world. Period. That's one, right? And second is it's the brand. The brand is still priceless to this day. People want to badmouth whatever, but Google is still a dream company, dream job for a lot of people, and it has credibility. So I still feel like we can recommend it at a high level. And is it the same company it used to be? Of course, it's not. They have done some things that are not that I don't find to be favorable. But I also think about the broader picture and like so much of my coaching, I think people think like I'm just the Google guy. Actually, my coaching has nothing to do with Google at all. It only has to do with science and cognitive psychology. It has nothing to do with Google whatsoever. But I just still think the big picture is it's still a good opportunity and company, but I don't think it's the same company it used to be, and it's had changes along the way. And all those changes, I think, have brought down the culture a little bit. And I'm not there anymore, so I can't speak to it. But it's just what I hear from my friends. And also remember, my friends were there for a previous culture, so they know the previous compared to the current. You've spoken about bad referrers. Curious to know what kinds of questions company ask when they reach out to references, and is it in depth? Um, it depends. It depends. Like those reference questions range greatly. But it's just interesting. Like the questions tend to be like, what do you like the best about them? Where do they really excel? What's a challenge area for them? One of the ones that I got asked a former colleague of mine, and he was good. And then they were getting referred. I'm not giving anything away. They were getting referred to a recruiter role at Amazon. This was years ago, and the Amazon person doing the reference check said, "Is this the best person you've ever worked with?" And I said, "No, this is not the best person I've worked with. I worked at Google for 5 years. Like, you want me to say that they're the best recruiter I worked with? I worked with thousands of recruiters in my time at Google. Like, they are not the best." I thought it was I know this is just a tangent in a story, but I didn't think it was a good question. It's like, are they the best person? A better question would be, would you rate them in the top 10 recruiters you've ever worked with or top 20? But to say the best and have that expectation that they needed to hire only the best person I'd ever worked with based on my background, I thought it was crazy. So you'll hear all sorts of questions. I don't know that all those refer or reference questions are legal either, but can't control that. Okay, going back to Google. Nevertheless, Google is a great company and a place to be associated with in the same shape or form. It's just the brand is incredibly valuable. And yes, Liz was there once. And yeah, I mean, again, like what is the value of a brand? Brands are so powerful. And so that's one of the things that people don't realize in the job application process. So why is the job application process so flawed? Well, if you're applying to a role at Google and you have NVIDIA and Meta and Amazon in your background or Microsoft in your background, you're going to get an interview. If you have ABC Corp and XYZ company and whatever, it's not as likely. So those brands do carry value even in the application process. Like they're going to get interviews. Oh, yeah, we got that one. Okay. And Raul, like I just want to say, like, for anybody who has been on these live streams or showed up for years, Raul was always and always has been our data person, and I miss that. I miss that in the Slack community too. That used to be, Raul. You can see the Slack community has definitely slowed down quite a bit. But yeah, I appreciate you. over all the years. And it's great to have you show up. And I know it's late your time. Yeah, Amazon is hardcore, and similar to Google, a fantastic brand to get in your background. Here's the other thing with Amazon. So much of the feedback about Amazon is it's grindy, it's tough, everybody's tough. Well, it's dependent on your team and your hiring manager. Not all sections of Amazon are going to be so incredibly just rigid and tough and aggressive. It's like, well, everything depends on the people within the team and how it's run. But Amazon's pretty tough. It's known to be a tough environment. And if you can get a job there, it's worth it because it's an elite brand and people will reach out to you and give you more opportunities because of that elite brand. Okay. We're just over 50 minutes in. I'm going to pause here for a moment. Things I want you to focus in on as we hit this September surge. Please, 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 just do yourself a favor. Go to my YouTube channel, click on the search bar, type in LinkedIn, and just watch some LinkedIn content and optimize. It's such a painful experience to look at people's profiles on LinkedIn because I got my job at Google because I had a good LinkedIn profile. They approached me. And I just always need to mention that because it needs to be heard time and time again. They approached me. And it was only because I had a very good LinkedIn profile. And obviously, I've optimized my LinkedIn profile and I continue to optimize. I continue to change. I work on it all the time. It's important. So that's number one. Number two, like you really have to start getting prepared for these interviews. 7-day free trial, all the bells and whistles, and then we keep it free. After 7 days, it's still free. We just remove some of the stuff. And by the way, for the cheap monthly package, it's $17 a month USD. Again, I'm not here to come in and do sales, but this is low-hanging fruit, right? We got to be investing in ourselves. So please make the investment in yourself. I'm gonna go into wrap-up mode. Thank you so much for being here as always. I appreciate showing up. I think I'm here for the next couple weeks, and then I'm gonna have a week off, and then I'll be back. So I'll be back next week. I do original long form content every Monday. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, negotiation coaching, and career strategies. I have packages as well. We still have that killer interview mastery course. And of course, try out the app. You have literally nothing to lose and everything to gain by doing the free trial. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I will be back next week. Have a great day.